Hey guys, it's Monday and we are on Unit 4, Week 1, and this unit is going to cover clothing. So let's see what supplies we need. Over the course of the next 2 weeks for this unit, we are going to need assorted buttons, some assorted gems, jewels, or beads, articles of clothing like hats, socks, and shoes, rice for a sensory bin, but you could also use like dry lentils, beans, or oats, celery, washable paint, painter's tape or masking tape, post-it notes, clothes pegs, wet glue, some white paper, and yarn or twine. The books that we'll be going over for the next 2 weeks are Pete the Cat and his Groovy 4 Buttons, Caps for Sale, Animals Definitely Should Not Wear Clothing, Centipede's 100 Shoes, Fancy Nancy, a hat for Minerva Louise. So our format for the day is the same as every other day. You are to start with your morning calendar, followed by our poem and song, which I will get a screenshot of the poem and song for this unit at the end of today's video. Then you start with a picture walkthrough of your book, which today's book is Pete the Cat and his 4 Groovy Buttons. And then you do a read aloud with your child and some recap and recall on what happened. Things to talk about today is clothing and why clothing is important and what kind of clothing we wear in what particular season. Then we have our learning activity followed by our easy activity. So let's get into it. Today we started out with the easy activity. As you'll see in these videos, we don't always follow the same format as what's laid out in the program, and that's totally fine. You make this fit you and your schedule. I like to start out with something that more directly relates to the book that we have read and something that is easier for me to put on the table to grab Nola's attention because that's what works for us. So this morning we started out with our easy activity, which is the sensory bin. Oh, we all love the sensory bin. Now before I get too far into this, I just want to say that with sensory bins, it may take some conditioning with your child to get them to understand how to responsibly play with the sensory bin inside. And you always need to be really close by to make sure they're following the rules. You lay down the boundaries for how you would like them to play with the sensory bin, and if they don't stay within those boundaries, then you will have to take the sensory bin away, which will cause them to be upset. But with some conditioning in this format, they will learn how to play with a sensory bin inside with not making a huge mess. But there will be a bit of mess. So we started out actually with first watching Pete the Cat on YouTube. We have started to make a habit of just going to YouTube for all of these books because I was finding that I was spending a lot of time, like over an hour's worth of time, trying to find these books through our local library, online, or for some sort of curbside pickup for our library. And even after all of that searching, I was never able to find all of the books that were included in the unit. And to note on that, some certain books, like these Pete the Cat books, or like Brown Bear that we read a few weeks ago, you know, on YouTube, they're put to a song and just some of the animation that comes along with this book. It's a lot catchier than how it would be if I were just reading a plain old book or trying to put it to my own tune. We're enjoying watching books on YouTube instead of always having an old-fashioned hard copy of a book in our hands. Pete the Cat was great. He's a very groovy cat. We really enjoy those books. And then that led us right into our sensory bin. Now for this bin, I simply used a small roasting pan that I had. I figured it was about the right size because we were going to be doing this at our dining room table. It's the right depth and it would accommodate the buttons that I had. You are going to do a rice and button sensory bin. You bury some buttons, give your child some tools, and ask them to dig in and find it. Now, if you don't have buttons, you might. Check your dress shirts, check your husband's suits or your suits if you have any. Any shirt that has buttons, typically the extra button or two is now sewn on the inside of the button-up part of your shirt. So I just took my husband's, I rated all of his dress shirts, so I had mostly really small buttons, which also worked really well with our smaller sensory bin. So Nola started out using the little spoons that I had supplied for her, which were just our little play spoons from her kitchen, and then she quickly got into just using her hands. After that, she went to our kitchen and retrieved a larger spoon and just had fun playing and digging. She found the buttons 2 times through. I had 24 buttons and most of them were really small and were around the same color as our brown rice. It made it a little trickier for her to find. We talked about the rice and how it felt. I don't think we've ever done a rice sensory bin before, so this was great. We talked about how the rice felt, sliding through our hands, and when we grabbed a single grain and tried to squeeze it, was it hard, was it soft, was it smooth, was it rough? Stuff like that was our conversation throughout this sensory bin, and then I just left her to play. After that, we got to our learning activity, which is sorting clothing. Get a few different pieces from distinctly different seasons. We stuck with winter and summer. So we sorted the clothing into two different piles, into which clothing we wear in the winter and which we wear in the summer, and we talked about why we wear those particular items during that particular season. If that seems like maybe it's a little bit too easy for your child, have them sort a whole basket of laundry with you. Now, make sure you keep your rice in a Ziploc bag or an airtight container because we are going to use it again throughout this unit. Boo! Boo! It's Tuesday. Today we are going to start with our opening morning calendar and poem and song, and then we are going to review the topic of clothing, like which type of clothing would we wear to the beach and which type of clothing do we wear to play out in the snow. Then we are going to redo Monday's Read Aloud, which is Pete the Cat, that groovy little cat. We love those books. And today we are going to introduce the letter C. Then we are going to get onto our learning activity, which is going to be followed by our easy activity. So let's get into this. This morning I started out with the song and poem along with the letter C card in the center of the table, along with some playing cards and our little bowl of buttons. This coincides with our easy activity. I find we usually start with the easy activity first and then get into our learning activity for some reason. Our easy activity for the day is to get some playing cards and have your child look at the number that's on the cards and then count out the equal amount of buttons and lay them beside the card or on the card, wherever they choose to lay them, as long as they're there and the number is correct. We started out watching Pete the Cat again to get into the theme of buttons, and then Nola had never really seen playing cards before, so it naturally piqued her interest. So I was explaining to her what playing cards are and that we could see the numbers on them, and then we started counting out buttons. And there was two problems that I saw with this activity when I was going over it last night. One was that I only had 24 buttons. So you can get the amount of cards that is appropriate for your child. If they can count to 5, then get out 2, 3, 4, 5. If they can count to 10, get all the way up to 10. So the problem I saw with this was I only had 24 buttons, so we weren't going to be able to count out the proper amount of buttons for the numbers 1 through 10. But I thought, no problem, we can do this in little sections. So we started out and it was fine. And then we got to the number 5 and Nola started using these silver and gray buttons that we had, and we only have 3 of those. And I should know this, that she likes to have things sorted and she's a little OCD with this. So we only had 3 buttons that were gray and silverish, so that caused a problem. She kind of stopped at the number 5. I helped her pick up again at the number 6, and then she totally lost interest. I pulled out 6 of a different color of button and started laying them beside the card, and she seemed okay. But by this point, I had already lost her for this activity. So I thought, okay, no problem, that's fine. We can maybe circle back to this activity later with a little bit of a different approach. So she doesn't seem to be too interested in counting out any more of these buttons with the cards. So what I've done is I've just left the next number, 7, that's the number that we were on. I just left that on the table with more than 7 buttons out, and we'll see what she does with that. Now we are going to do our letter C alphabet hunt. So I'm going to take the same approach that I did last time and just put these little post-its out around the house while she's finishing up her TV time, and she'll be happy to find them. So then we went on to our learning activity, which is to get a flashlight and go on an alphabet hunt again, this time for the letter C. Now we already had our C card from this morning, and again on the back of the card I put about 5 words that start with the letter C that she is very familiar with. I remember the last time we did an alphabet hunt, she wasn't really interested in finding it with the flashlight, so I thought this time I would start with just placing the post-its around the house again without her really seeing me do that, so it would be a surprise when she found it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10! You got them all!
Well, we still need 11 more.
And that would pique her interest to find those post-it notes with the letter C, which worked perfectly as it did last time. And then I thought I may be able to convince her to go on another letter hunt for the letter C, this time using the flashlight. Worked for about 30 seconds, and then she just lost interest. So I just left it at that. So today we didn't get too deep or too involved with either of these activities, but we still did enough of each one that I would say we completed them and it was mostly successful. So we'll see you tomorrow. Hey guys, it's Wednesday and I'm going to try and do this video with loud kids in the background, so sorry about that. So today you're going to open with your morning calendar, poem, and song. Then we're going to introduce the new book for the day, which is Caps for Sale. We're going to talk about hats and caps and what they are and why we might wear them. Then we're going to get into our learning activity, which is followed by our easy activity, so let's get to it. So today I started out with a basket of hats, different kinds of hats, on a chair in front of the table because it was just a little bit too big to put on the table, quite frankly. Before we got into playing with the hats, we watched the video for the book Caps for Sale. Then we played with our hats a little bit, trying them on, stacking them up on our head. The basket of hats is our learning activity today. We're going to talk about different kinds of hats. We're going to see how many hats we can stack on our head. We're going to try and walk around and guess how many steps we'll be able to take with a certain amount of caps on our head. And this was a really fun game. We took this into the kitchen so we had a little bit more space. We had a little mat laid out in the kitchen that we were trying to walk around. We took turns stacking the hats up on each other's heads and trying to walk around. And then Nola had a great idea of acting out the book. She wanted to be the monkey. I had the caps on my head first and took a little nap, and we went through the whole book of basically playing monkey see, monkey do with our caps. Next, the easy activity is to create your own hat. You can go to YouTube to get some ideas for this if you need to. I just took a paper plate, poked some holes through it, got some yarn, collected a bunch of random items, and gave Nola a little egg container with glue and a paint stick and let her go to it. She just needed a little bit of my help sometimes as the hat filled up rather quickly. We had big items, we had small items. We talked a little bit about the book while we were playing this game. And I just let her make her own funny hat. And we are just waiting for that one to dry so that we can get into trying that one on a bit later. Come here, where are you? Where are you? And then Colton got to try on all the hats, didn't you? You tried on all the funny hats, huh? Yeah. So we had a great time with these activities today. We have left the basket of hats out and we've played with it a few more times since. And I might even leave that one out so that we can maybe have a go at it again tomorrow because we've both really enjoyed playing this game.
Bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow. Hey guys, it's Thursday, so let's see what we have in store for today. We're going to start with our morning calendar, poem, and song. We're going to review the topic of clothing. We're going to do our read aloud, which is just a repeat of Caps for Sale. We're going to revisit the letter C with our things to talk about today. Then we're going to get into our learning activity, which is going to be followed by our easy activity, so let's get into this. Today's activities are very, very simple and required virtually no prep at all on the night before, because we are going to be using our hats today for our learning activity. So I didn't start with anything in the middle of the table today. We started our morning as we normally do with our calendar and our poem routine. While we were getting dressed this morning, we did a little recap on clothing. And I told her that we were going to go outside for a walk today, so I asked her what kind of clothes we should wear since it was cold outside. And she got it bang on with long sleeves, warm pants, socks, hats, gloves, mitts, coat, scarf, boots, the list went on, but she got the idea. Then, with our things to talk about today with reviewing the letter C, Nola had a FaceTime call with her grandmother this morning, and she just started telling her about the letter C and some words that she knows that begin with the sound K. So I thought, great, she's doing this on her own now. Nothing required from me at all. She does a lot of review with her dad when he gets home from work. He always asks her what she did for the day and asks her about things on the wall or things that he sees around the house that may be involved with some of the things that we've been doing. And so she goes through her own little review of what happened, what book we read, what activities we did, and that's a really, really great way for her to do the review all on her own. Though in the program, it is recommended that you do another letter C card or on your whiteboard, whatever it is that you're using, that you write out a capital and small version of the letter and talk about different words that your child will know that begin with this letter. Our learning activity is going to revert back to our hats today. So in the program, it's recommended that you get out your masking tape and make out a grid with 5 or perhaps 10 squares, depending on what your child is able to count up to, and then have your child place each hat into one of the sections and count them out as they go. So for this activity, we have this little mat. It's an accordion style mat. It has 6 rectangles on it, and the kids, we found it in the closet, and they have been playing with it for easily a month now, and they just absolutely love this thing because it's soft and squishy and you can form it in so many different ways and different shapes. I thought today we would use that as our grid for counting out hats because it's already out in our play area, and I wouldn't have to break out a bunch of tape, as this will be rather large with our hats if we were to use the masking tape, and my son really likes picking masking tape because that's what we use to occupy him sometimes while we are doing our activities. We laid this mat out and our basket of hats was still in our play area. So we just started counting out the hats, and thankfully we had 12 hats so that we could put 2 hats on each rectangle, and we counted them out. We stacked them up 2 high across. Nola had laid them out, and I'm so thankful that we had 12 because she really needs things to be balanced. Our easy activity for the day is matching socks. Nola has been on a sock matching kick for weeks now. Every time we do laundry, she always wants me to hold the socks aside for her. She puts them together and matches them up, and then I help her fold them together. She's kind of obsessed with this right now. But of course today, when I asked her if she wanted to match the socks, she couldn't care less. So I just left them in a little pile in her brother's room where we were folding laundry today, and she did go back rather quickly and matched all the socks up together. So that's it for today. A quick and easy day with activities that really blended in with some of the things we'd be doing around the house anyway. His new favorite drawer. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. It's Friday. We've got some really great stuff lined up for today, like we do every day. So today you're going to start with your opening calendar of poem and song. Then we're going to get into today's read aloud, which is animals should definitely not wear clothing. Things to talk about today with your child are everything we've covered this week. Clothing, why do we wear clothing, what kind of clothing do we wear in what seasons? Hi. All of a sudden you want me now, huh? And when do we change our clothing? Then we're gonna do our learning activity, which will be followed by our easy activity, so let's get into this. So this morning I had everything set up on the table today. Our learning activity and our easy activity, but of course we started upstairs, and when Nola opened up her bedroom window this morning, she noticed it was frosty outside and she said, oh, it looks cold. So I thought perfect opportunity here to recall on our clothing and what we should wear and why we should wear. So we got into that first thing this morning up in her room. Then we came downstairs and we watched our read aloud today, which is Why Animals Should Definitely Not Wear Clothing. A really good book. She read it about, or we watched it on YouTube 5 times through. On the table I had everything. I had our learning activity, which is a shoe puzzle. Grab some shoes, put them out on a piece of paper and trace them out, and then let your child figure out what shoe goes where. I also had our easy activity set out, which is to paint the letter C. Now in the program, this is where you are to use celery, which I completely forgot to put on our grocery list, so I didn't have any celery. So we decided to use cucumber, because I definitely had some of that. So last night I just kind of gutted a chunk of cucumber to make it look like a C and left it out on the counter overnight so it would dry out as much as it could. We used that this morning to paint the letter C rather than the celery. In my opinion, both of these food items would be a little bit confusing to a small child concerning the letter C, which is why we're supposed to use the celery, as it resembles the letter C, I'm assuming. But it sounds like it starts with an S. And then as I was carving out the cucumber, I also thought, oh, well, this isn't much better. This word sounds like it starts with the letter Q. So I asked Nola this morning as we were getting ready to do this activity, what letter she thought that cucumber would start with.
We're going to do C today. And we're going to move stickers on there and get the Susanna A.
So, what is this?
Cucumber.
Cucumber. And what is it shaped like?
A C.
A C, yeah. Can you guess what letter the word cucumber starts with? You're right, it does. But doesn't it sound like Q? It says cucumber, but it doesn't start with the letter Q. It starts with the letter C. There's actually 2 C's in the word cucumber. Oh, look, Colton just got another piece of French toast with his fork. Way to go, buddy.
Way to go, buddy.
Way to go, buddy. Oh, you just pulled it off. Aw, man. He picked it up with his fork and he... Oh, is he going to get it again? Let's see. Are you going to get it? Oh, almost. Almost. He's trying. You got it! Yay! Colton, no, put it in your mouth. Don't take it off your fork.
Well, I'm pretty sure he wants to eat it like that.
He's just a silly boy. Okay, so Mommy's gonna get you a plate of paint and you're gonna dip the cucumber in the paint and then paint the letter C with the letter C. Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay. I'll get you some paint. So I let her pick which activity she wanted to do first. She wanted to paint her letter C, so that's what we did. Squirted a little bit of paint on a paper plate and taped down her placemat and her letter C, and she stamped the letter C rather quickly, and then we got onto a few other pages. Back to his favorite cupboard. This is also where we took the opportunity to review some letter C words. A little later on, we pulled out our shoe puzzle, and this wasn't too hard for her. Last night I mapped this out and didn't just put all of the shoes sitting straight up, so it was the flat bottom pattern. I also put some on their sides just to give the puzzle a little bit more shapes. I included 1 shoe of mine, 1 shoe of her brother's, and 1 shoe of her dad's, but they were mostly just hers. She had no problem with this and really no interest in doing it again, so we've only done it once. Remember to hold on to your letter C. Every time we do a printout of the letter, we are to put it in a book. So we are creating their alphabet book, which will not be in alphabetical order, which is fantastic. We really want them to learn the alphabet and not just memorize the alphabet. So there's another week for you. Some fun, easy activities with virtually no prep. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're considering perhaps starting some preschool at home with your toddler, then please consider subscribing. See you next week.